We have one question right now. David, I'll throw it at you. It's by FSX Flyer 789. David, what do you have to say about channels like Yayha Snow and Muslim by Choice, who always seem to misrepresent the arguments? I think he's mainly talking about what we call the leech channels. So what do you have to say about the leech channels, David?
Yeah, well, you take some of these, I guess Muslim by Choice and Yayha Snow would be the main ones. But what they do is they'll, whether it's, a talk by James White or a talk by us or a debate, they'll take something and then completely misrepresent the meaning and what was said and so on. And that's what they'll use to convince their followers. And on the one hand, you look at this and you say, really, is this what Islamic apologetics is? It's just constant twisting and misrepresentation in order to try and get over on people, to try and trick people. But again, on the one hand, you start thinking, well, that actually makes sense given their theology. But second, I don't think it actually hurts in the long run. Yeah, you can trick people. You can deceive people. You can misrepresent things, and you can get away with it for a while. But eventually, the people who are actually concerned with truth, they will eventually pick up on it, right? So, yeah, if you're just listening to, Yayha Snow videos or Muslim by Choice videos, and you think, oh my goodness, is that what Christians are saying? Is that what James White said about this guy or that guy or something like that? That will work for a while, but if you are a more serious person, a more sincere person, and you actually happen to see what the person actually said one day, and then you see how it's being twisted by Muslim by Choice or Yayha Snow, then you start realizing, whoa, why am I even watching this channel? And why are the apologists I go to so horribly deceptive? And that's when you start realizing, whoa, maybe I need to look into things for myself and not just mindlessly follow what a random internet apologist says. So, it's bad. It's bad when you think let me put it this way. It's bad because people are actually deceived through that process, and we don't like deception. But in the long run, I don't think it will work as a long-term project for deceiving people, because people will hopefully eventually see their way out of that. And if they don't see their way past that, if they don't see their way out of that, I don't think they were very interested in truth to begin with.
Yeah, right. In fact, can I just add one comment to what Dave said? Just interesting. Can you guys hear me first? I just want to make sure.
Go ahead.
All right. Just to talk about the deception, the dishonesty of these YouTube channels. Muslim by Choice just took one of your excerpts, Dave, saying you were embarrassed by the quote-unquote pornographic language of Ezekiel 23.
I was the one who brought it up.
Yeah, and he did that. But it's interesting. Apart from you not being embarrassed by it and addressing it, people who live in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones, because the Quran and the Hadith are replete with what we'd call pornographic explicit language. And I just want to give an illustration. If they have a problem with Ezekiel 23, which is a parable, yes, it is graphic because God is trying to hit home the seriousness of idolatry, because Israel is God's covenant people, his spiritual bride. So when they whore after other gods, that's committing spiritual adultery. And we find something similar in James chapter 4, verse 4, where it warns Christians, love of the world is enmity with God and makes you an adulterer before God, spiritually speaking. But if these Muslims have a problem with pornographic language, then they need to toss out the Quran. For example, now, again, you need the Hilali Khan version in chapter 55, verse 56 of the Quran. Now, I don't know if you have that vocab. Do you have the Hilali Khan version?
I got a Hilali Khan right here.
Okay, can you do me a favor?
Hey, you don't remember? Yesterday I told people I always have like 8 Qurans within like 2 feet of me. So.
Good. So if you can read for them, chapter 55, verse 56 of the Quran.
And then after this, we'll get started. Go ahead.
Yeah. And he'll read the translation of the Arabic word, yet mithunna. Right? Yet mithunna. Yet mithunna.
You said 55, 56?
Yes, sir.
Wherein both will be kasarat ut tarf, chaste female wives, restraining their glances, desiring none except their husbands, with whom no man or jinni has had tamth before them.
And then doesn't give, in the parentheses, doesn't give you the translation?
No, I think they've
Oh, they sanitized it?
yeah, I think they've
Okay.
sanitized it.
Well, here is the older version. You ready? Here's the older version. Let me read it for you. Wherein both will be those maidens restraining their glances upon their husbands, whom no man or jinn yet mithahunna has opened their hymens with sexual intercourse before them. That's what the word means, and that's the translation provided by Hilali Khan in parentheses. Has opened their hymens with sexual intercourse. This is the graphic language of the Quran. You can add to that Surah 78:33, which describes these whores of paradise as having firm, swelling breasts. You don't get more pornographic than that. Paradise becomes a Playboy, a glorified Playboy mansion.
Oh, and by the way, you're just talking about the Quran. You go to the Hadith.
Oh, it's worse.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I've pointed this out before in the passages which talk about Muhammad having sex with 9 or 11 of his wives in one day. You think this is his followers saying that he would have sex with 9 women or girls in one day, and that he had the sexual strength of 30 men. Now think about this. If Muhammad's just going from one house to another, how would his followers know that he's going in there, having sex, finishing, and then coming out and going to another house? How would they know what he's doing inside the house, right? How do they know he's not in there having lunch? How do they know he's having sex? He must have been talking about it, right? This guy must have been coming out saying, that was number 4. I just had sex with number 4, going on to number 5. He must have been bragging to his followers, and that's why they're bragging about him having the sexual strength of 30 men. But my goodness, when you start going into the hadiths and your virgins in paradise and Allah giving you miraculous erections that last for all eternity and so on, this is just very, very strange. And to think that this, which this isn't, these aren't parables, right? It's just talking about this is what paradise is like, right? It's like one eternal ongoing sexathon. And to compare this with what happens in Ezekiel 23, where God is trying to give them the most graphic imagery they can imagine to show them what it's like to rebel against it. Because I mean, you know, the Muslim response is, look, it's so awful to have this language. Well, think about this, Sam. From an Islamic perspective, what would be worse? A woman lusting after genitals as big as a donkey's, or the horrible sin of shirk, the rebelling against the Almighty who has rescued you. And then you turn to a false god. Which would be worse? Well, according to Islam, shirk would be worse, right? That would be worse, right? So either when God tries to give people a comparison, this would be like a woman having a husband and then going off and lusting after someone else, and so with lusting after someone's giant penis or something like this. And the Muslims say, look at that, it's disgusting. It's supposed to be disgusting. It's supposed to be the most disgusting imagery you can think of, because it's meant to illustrate what it's like to rebel against God and to go after false gods. Now, are Muslims saying, no, it's not really that bad? They've got to be saying one or two things there, right? They either have to be saying, no, it's actually not that bad. It's not so incredibly bad to go after false gods that you could actually compare it to the most disgusting thing you can have. It's not that bad. In which case, okay, then you've just undermined Islamic theology, which says it's the worst thing you can do. Or they're saying, yes, it is that bad. Yes, it would be so bad that it would be legitimate to compare it to something like that, but God just wouldn't say that. In which case, you're telling us that God won't tell you how bad and disgusting it is to rebel against him, right? So Allah in the Quran, he'll tell you to go subjugate people. He'll tell you to go kill people, tell you to go slaughter people, but he won't describe how disgusting your sin actually is. And so either one of those, they can go and tell us, and I don't think they're going to have a very good case.